this final hour. It's an unusual choice. I'm just listening here to see what they are hearing on the floor as this awkward shot of Trump standing in a hallway is being broadcast on the screen, and he's looking from side to side.
Just slightly, that the bullet missed him just enough.
Oh, it's kind of an inspirational voiceover here. I should mention it's also always possible that there will be a surprise of some sort before the night is through. Donald Trump is well known for his love of dramatic moments, especially on television, so I wouldn't rule out something unexpected in the next hour. Something unexpected beyond him just standing here in a hallway, not speaking. Yeah, I don't really understand what's happening here in terms of programming.
More prosperity.
But can I just ask, sorry, control room, this screen that we're looking at, the people in the hall can see this as well?
In these United States and abroad.
Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the next president of the United States, Donald J. Trump.
Just my children and my home. Thank my lucky stars to be living here.
So this is Donald Trump in the hall. He's going up to like the kind of the box seats. There's his son, Don Jr., clearly emotional at this moment. Obviously has to have been scary, particularly for the Trump family, what was narrowly avoided on Saturday night in Pennsylvania. President Trump greeting Tucker Carlson, the former Fox News personality and now members of his family, and soon his new running mate, J.D. Vance, standing next to J.D. Vance, who in turn is standing next to the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson.
His defiance against somebody who tried to kill him. You will not take this man down. He has the courage, the strength, and he will be the next president of the United States.
The man with the sort of high-pitched voice that you hear off camera is Lee Greenwood, who's there live singing the song and doing commentary along with it.
Tennessee, across the plains of Texas, from sea to shining sea. Ladies and gentlemen, the 45th President of the United States and soon to be the 47th President of the United States, please welcome Donald J. Trump.
Stephanie Rule joins us. Ari Melber, Lawrence O'Donnell is back with us. Joy Reid. So, Steph, the theme tonight of the RNC is Make America Wealthy Again. They're doing this. They're making it's Make America Blank Again. Every night is sort of a Mad Libs approach to the theme this week. Were you able to see President Biden's interview with Lester Holt earlier?
Indeed, I was.
Yeah. It does seem like the campaign is back on. I don't know whether that means President Biden's campaign is going to re-up its ads. They've taken them down over the last couple of days since the shooting, and they've canceled a bunch of campaign events. But as President Biden does appear to be sort of pivoting back to normal campaign tactics and normal campaign messaging around his opponent, do you think that the Democrats have been sharpening at all their economic message here? I mean, that's what the Republicans are leading their convention with.
Democrats need to, because what they need to do is fact-check Republicans and literally say, show me the money. Right. So this first day of the RNC is the economy day, and their message is we're gonna wipe out inflation. We're gonna clean it up. We're gonna get prices down. We're gonna get fiscal spending under control. And what Democrats need to say to Republicans is where, because Donald Trump's platform so far, he's saying I want to put 10% tariffs on everything. That's going to balloon inflation. Donald Trump wants to extend corporate tax cuts, possibly permanently. How is he going to do that? Have you heard a single Republican articulate how that's going to happen? Republicans like to say that Democrats are the ones who do all the spending, but when you stop collecting taxes and the coffers are empty, that's a problem. And so these corporate taxes that they want to extend, there's going to be huge problems because it's going to expand our deficit. So the issue for Democrats, they've got a good economic message. Inflation's a problem, but they've got a lot of positive economic messages, and they need to call Donald Trump out and say, what are you going to actually do?
We should point out to first-time convention watchers that it's very unusual for the nominee to be there on Monday night of a convention, but this is Donald Trump coming back from that Saturday assassination attempt to make it clear how strong he is physically at this point as a candidate.
They were just yelling, fight, 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 was what they were yelling.
Yeah. And I just wanted, for those who are not like church familiar, the way that open was done will be very familiar to people who are familiar with evangelical church. You had Lee Greenwood, doing his God Bless the USA. This is a song that Donald Trump typically does use at his campaign rallies. But it was done in a style. I mean, this is a very focused message to evangelical voters, because that whole open was in that style. And then in lifting Donald Trump up essentially as God blessed, that God saved him, that he was like basically touched by God in order to be saved over the weekend. That was a very specific and focused message to evangelicals.
Let's go ahead, Ari.
I was just going to say, conventions deal in images. This is a rather remarkable image of the bandaged nominee appearing for the first time with his new running mate. There's J.D. Vance, you see to his left. You see the bandage on Trump's right ear. You see the Speaker of the House, one over from him, Tucker Carlson, up there. And it's a very deliberate choice, not only for us to see the return of this candidate, and thank goodness that he's safe and wasn't hit worse in the assassination attempt, but also a very deliberate bit of casting, to Lawrence's point, to show him seen but not heard. I mean, we don't usually see Donald Trump in this mode, or any nominee at their convention, listening and on stage and proof of life he's okay. And now, I guess, as you were commenting, Rachel, earlier, they were just sort of showing him waiting to come out, walk out, and then sit down and watch him watch.
Yeah, I mean,
it's unusual.
I feel like at previous conventions, you have had moments where you've had the nominee appear so people can applaud. It's usually a very tightly scripted thing, and it's kind of just an appearance, and you get excited, and then they're gone again. This was an extended thing, and showing him in the holding room was just like a little bit of an unusual decision. But, I mean, credit to them for mixing it up a little bit, for making us wonder what was going on. That's part of the way that you make people watch. Vaughn Hilliard, NBC News correspondent Vaughn Hilliard, is in the room. He's covering the RNC for us in Milwaukee this evening. We've been catching little shots of Vaughn here and there as the camera pans around the room every now and again. Vaughn, can you tell us your vantage point from what you've just seen, and what the atmosphere is like now that Trump is there himself in person?
If I could, Rachel, it was 8 years ago that I was standing in the arena in Cleveland, Ohio, with the Republican National Convention, when the first time that Donald Trump was seen inside of that convention hall was in the middle of Ted Cruz's speech. And that's when Ted Cruz said, "Vote your conscience," to which the arena booed loudly. Donald Trump, in the middle of that moment, came walking down the stairs. 8 years later, he came walking down the stairs with the United Republican Party that was hailing him almost as a folk hero type status. At this point, Donald Trump has been impeached twice. Donald Trump has been indicted 4 times. Donald Trump was found in a civil fraud trial and fined $350 million. And yet, these are not the folks that you would necessarily are driving hours to a Trump rally like we saw in Pennsylvania. These are the folks that are the That is what, when Donald Trump was lifted up on that stage after being shot, he lifted his fists in the air and said, "Fight, fight, fight." And with Donald Trump standing there in silence, this whole convention hall chanting, "Fight, fight, fight." This is 113 days out where American politics here finds itself. And Donald Trump is the leader of not just a party, but of a movement that has only been emboldened and grown over the years, and one that is fervent and passionate at this moment in time. A great many folks believe that the election was stolen here 4 years ago, and they are out for the revenge and to go and take back the White House that they feel then believe that it was owed to them. And this is a moment here for Donald Trump and his allies to take the stage and deliver a message that this is a Republican Party that is going to take back not just the White House, but a Senate and a House, because a lot of those folks, the Liz Cheneys, the Mike Pences, the folks here, when you talk to the delegates, they're not needed in the Republican Party anymore, and they are not here in Milwaukee. This is Donald Trump's Republican Party in 2024.
Vaughn, can I ask you, I know you've spent a lot of time at a lot of Trump events. One of the hallmarks of sort of Trumpism and the Trump takeover in the Republican Party has been that the media has been targeted almost as much as the political opposition, that reporters, particularly reporters with mainstream news organizations like ours, get singled out, get targeted. Sometimes they're put in unsafe situations and are sometimes made sort of the subject of political commentary by people when you're standing out there in the middle of the crowd. Has that been any different at all since you've been in Milwaukee? I'm just thinking about the aftermath of the horrible events of Saturday night, but also wondering just generally what the temperature is like there in terms of how people are feeling about reporters.
It's a good question. It's not like it was 8 years ago, or more so even 12 years ago, if I may, Rachel, here. I think as we stand here in this convention hall, I think that there is an acknowledgement that there is a clear disagreement over what realities oftentimes are. The one thing, though, that I can say is that there is a united front in the agreement that political violence is not a means to the end for this country, and that there is a belief among all the delegates I talked to that what happened on Saturday could have easily been them. They could have been at that rally here. And there is an acknowledgement that in this country that political candidates and supporters should be able to go and hear from those candidates. And that is one thing. The press, of course, we are targeted. Donald Trump has made us a fixture here in a way that has propelled other new outlets, right-wing outlets, to become popular and to have growing mass reaches where, frankly, they do not necessarily turn into NBC News anymore in a way that they did just 8 years ago. But I still believe, and I know from conversations, there is a baseline belief among most that violence is not the answer. At the same time, Rachel, I know that we have all had conversations where others have told us the exact opposite, and they have foreshadowed a civil war, that it could be on the brink, understanding that this country is at a very anxious and angry point, and that there is a reckoning that this country is currently going through, because not only do they feel that their political candidate has been targeted and attempted to be put in jail, but also that their election has been stolen. I can tell you this is not the same conversations that I have with voters that I did 8 years ago, and with each passing year, it has only gotten more intense and more difficult.
NBC News correspondent Vaughn Hilliard for us in Milwaukee tonight, right in the middle of it. Vaughn, thank you. We'll be back with you, I know. What's happening right now, the final hour of Republican, of all convention nights, tends to be the biggest speakers of the night. And one of the big events of the night is the sight of Trump, the fact that Trump is there himself. The big news of the day, obviously, was the choice of his running mate, because we're in the world that we're in. The other big news of the day was one of the federal criminal cases against their nominee being dismissed by the judge he appointed in Florida. That will be appealed, but it's incredible that that alone is happening on the day that his vice presidential running mate has been announced. We are expecting to hear a speech tonight from a woman named Amber Rose. She has not been a traditional fixture in conservative politics. It is sort of remarkable that she's got such a high-profile speaking slot tonight. She is a model. She's an OnlyFans entrepreneur. She's a reality TV person known for being the ex-girlfriend of the anti-Semitic rapper Kanye West. When Trump ran the first time in 2016, she was a vocal critic of Trump, and now she supports him.
I'm a model and entrepreneur. Thank you. But most importantly, I'm a mother. My whole world revolves around providing for my children, keeping them safe, and giving them an opportunity for a better life. That's something that unites all American parents, whether we're Republicans, Democrats, conservatives, or liberals. We all want a better country for our children. But I'm here tonight to tell you, no matter your political background, that the best chance we have to give our babies a better life is to elect Donald Trump President of the United States. Now, you may be wondering why I'm up here telling you this. I'm no politician, and I don't want to be. But I do care about the truth. And the truth is that the media has lied to us about Donald Trump. I know this because for a long time I believed those lies. So I'm here to set the record straight. The first person I knew who supported Donald Trump was my father. I was shocked. My entire family is racially diverse. And I believed the left-wing propaganda that Donald Trump was a racist. My father said, "No, he's not, Amber. What are you talking about?" And when I insisted, he said, "Prove it." So to prove my father wrong, I did my research and looked into all things Donald Trump. People have to do their research. I watched all the rallies, and I started meeting so many of you, his red hat wearing supporters.
Now, see, the reason this is awkward is because Charlie Kirk just spoke just before this, right? He was one of the other big speakers for like the first night. And the thing about what's going on in the MAGA movement right now, and particularly on the younger side of the MAGA movement, which is helmed in some ways is by Charlie Kirk and his Turning Point USA thing, is that they're really embracing the whole idea of biological determinism. The whole idea
race
that
science.
it's race science, right? This is when they talk about being red-pilled, that's become a term that we sort of think of in a more anodyne way than it deserves. I mean, what Charlie Kirk, for example, just this past year has been arguing is that the Civil Rights Act of 1964, like not like a current Civil Rights Act. The Civil Rights Act of 1964 was, in his words, a big mistake. Martin Luther King Jr. was a terrible person. He is the one who expressed that when he gets on a plane, if the pilot is black, he assumes that the plane is not going to be flown safely, and that when there is any sort of aviation disaster, you should look to see if there are black people who have been involved. So Ms. Rose, I'm sure she has done her research, but it is awkward to have the I checked and I'm sure nothing going on here is racist happen right after they do the Charlie Kirk speech about how MLK is terrible and civil rights is a bad idea and black people shouldn't be allowed to fly planes because they're not biologically capable of it.
It was less than 2 weeks ago, Donald Trump was talking about black jobs.
Yeah, black jobs. Yeah, and you know, let's not also forget that he did also say that the mayor of Baltimore, or Republicans all said that the mayor of Baltimore just being black caused that ship to crash into the bridge. And you know, I too have done my research on Donald Trump. I did write a book about him. Did quite well. And among the things I found in my research, I mean, Amber Rose has every right to do her research. I actually love her haircut. It's quite similar to mine, so I will, you know, I will say I respect her aesthetic choices. But in my research about Donald Trump, what I found is that he was sued by the Nixon administration for refusing to rent to blacks. They would put C on the application, standing for colored. Apologies for using the old-timey language. He also wanted to have executed the 14 and 15-year-olds who were accused of being the Central Park Five, of raping a white woman in the park, for which they were later found innocent using DNA. He is somebody who has called countries that are run by black people S-hole countries. We're PG shows, so we won't, but S stands for something that rhymes with it. He has said, look at how they live when it comes to the way black communities roll out. That is from Michael Cohen, who is his longtime attorney. Donald Trump has essentially also leaned into biological determinism, essentially said that President Obama shouldn't have been president because he couldn't have possibly been an American because his father is Kenyan, and said that he essentially was lying about his identity and wasn't even American. Also denounced Muslims by trying to say President Obama was a Muslim, even though there's nothing wrong with being a Muslim, but he said there was something wrong with it. He also said Muslims shouldn't be allowed to come into the country. He said there should be Fight Club, that brown people should be forced to fight in, and that they should be put into camps, rounded up simply because they are migrants from countries that are brown. So I don't really know what research tools Amber Rose uses to determine who is racist and who has racial negative attitudes, but I'm thinking it might not be the Google. The Google is helpful in these.
Can I also just say, I mean, you mentioned the Muslim ban, right? That was, so when Donald Trump in December 2015 said, we are going to have a complete and total ban on Muslims entering the country. That was a shocking moment in American politics at the time, because he had said a lot of terrible things. He had talked about Mexican immigrants being rapists, right, and all this other. He said some really shocking things. But to say, as a matter of policy, and I remember covering it at the time, being shocked that it was not just something that he pulled from the ether, he read it off a piece of paper. So somebody who knows how to operate a printer had assisted him in writing down these words about banning people on the basis of the Muslim faith, on the basis of their religion, from the United States. And he proposed it as policy. But then he got into office. He was sworn in January 2017 and tried to implement it. And now, as he's running again in 2024, you know, they tore apart the Republican Party platform. There was one in 2016. It was weirdly pro-Russian, and nobody ever explained that. They abolished it in 2020, didn't do it at all. They've brought back a very brief all-capital letters version of it this time. And one of the things they're pledging to do again is ban people from the United States if they are Muslims. Right. The idea that you would make an anti-racist or no, he's not a bigot argument for a candidate who is pledging to ban people from this country on the basis of their religion, who just chose as his running mate somebody who hasn't passed any legislation at all. The only constructive legislation that J.D. Vance has been involved in as a senator was the bipartisan rail safety legislation he did with Sherrod Brown in Ohio after the East Palestine derailment disaster. But the thing that he's got his name on now, that he's most recently been pushing, is anti-diversity initiatives. All diversity initiatives should be banned in all federal programs.
Right. And by the way, and I'm glad you mentioned that, because Project 2025, which was written for Donald Trump, obviously he wouldn't have written it because it's clear he doesn't care about policy. But the policies being laid out for him are sort of almost insanely anti-black. They want to implement the Project 1776 project, which was their answer to the 1619 project, essentially banning any school that receives federal funds from teaching black history from any other point of view other than the old-timey point of view that says that the founders were saints, essentially. They were secular saints. They want to take away federal funding and also ban Title I. Essentially, gender equality in schools will be gone. They want to punish parents who have children who are trans and who try to get the medical treatment. They want to punish them and treat them as criminals. I mean, everything about his platform is either anti-black, anti-brown, anti-LGBTQ, and hateful. And this is the program he would implement if he was president of the United States. That's Party is. So it's ironic that they were able to recruit this young woman who, she's a racially ambiguous. I don't want to say she's black because she has said she's not. So I don't want to say this woman who is of whatever race that she has claimed. She said she's not black. But they've brought somebody whose whole career is based in black culture. She used to be on a show on BET. That's the reason most people know who she is. She dated one of the most prominent African-American rappers in the business in the history of hip-hop. So her whole culture came from black culture, even though she says she's not a black person herself. And the fact that she is now the person they're using to try to recruit young people of color and to say that this is the person who is the endorser of Donald Trump who you should trust, when she won't even claim the culture that brought her to the table, I'm dubious that this will work. I don't know anyone who takes their political cues from Amber Rose, but just in case you do, you might want to duplicate doing your own research because she might not have done it thoroughly.
I think when we look at, civil rights, he was a president before, so we actually know his record, and we've just discussed and reminded people some of it. He had an anti-civil rights record. He had judges who were anti-civil rights, anti-voting rights, so we kind of know where Donald Trump is, and we've covered 2025, which builds on that. On the politics, I think there is something interesting to observe. This is a Instagram play at the convention, but it's a Truth Social candidate that you're going to get. And so with Instagram, you have the polished photos. Amber Rose, by comparison, Joe Biden has about 17 million Instagram followers, and he's the current president. Amber Rose has 25 million Instagram followers. She has a following, whatever you want to call it. It's a numerically measurable following.
Would you describe her job as an influencer or just as a free-floating celebrity?
I think she predates...
Visiting from the 20th century here.
It's a great question. As always, Rachel, really, she predates the influencer era.
Okay.
As mentioned, she was romantically linked to Kanye West, who's a Trumpian, political, hateful figure in terms of what he does in politics. She was also married to Wiz Khalifa. She's also on BET. She also has a large following, and she uses OnlyFans as a model and entrepreneur. And so she has all of this thing, but 25 million people is a lot of reach. Whether any of those people will choose their candidate or who they vote for based on her or this speech is, of course, an open question. But I say Instagram versus Truth Social because they are looking for a more polished, more sort of certain pitch that may not relate to the actual plans in the past or the future that Donald Trump has on the issues that matter to people in this community. But I don't think it's a random play. The only other point I'll observe, as Lawrence mentioned, is Monday night is usually the night of the least important speakers, but because of the horrific events of this weekend, Donald Trump's now on the floor and it feels larger. I don't know that anyone ever originally planned to have Donald Trump present on camera while Amber Rose made this pitch.
He seemed to enjoy it quite a lot, though.
He did. He's not just making an Instagram play. Tonight, what I think is maybe one of the most significant plays is Elon Musk. Elon Musk tonight announced that he will be giving $45 million a month to a newly formed super PAC. And that's just cash. But think about, you have the man who controls formerly Twitter, now X, going out there saying, I am openly supporting in a massive way Donald Trump. It was moments after the assassination attempt. You saw Elon Musk, who controls Twitter, putting up that photo of Donald Trump, on the platform. And one of the reasons it's noteworthy, Elon Musk is very, very close to J.D. Vance, as is Peter Thiel.
Yeah.
Just last week, I spoke to a major CEO in the AI space who said Elon Musk is laser beam focused on Donald Trump. Why? Because the next president, irrelevant of who it is going to control the fate of AI, which will change every bit of how we live. So to me, yes, we're talking about an Instagram play. We're talking about Amber Rose. When you have someone like Elon Musk today, make it public, he's giving this kind of money over the next 113 days. That is major. Could you have a shadow-type president in Elon Musk getting what he wants from a Donald Trump? That's something we should be thinking about.
Yeah, so if Elon Musk is going to put up, $150 or $200 million is what he's talking about there, that we know of, plus whatever he's already put in. And then you've got Peter Thiel, who spoke at the last Republican National Convention. Peter Thiel, an incredibly radical, incredibly controversial figure in American politics. I mean, to the point where, women shouldn't vote. We should form born new countries based on floating shipping containers so that we aren't constrained by the terrible tyranny of an American Constitution. I mean, like, Peter Thiel is as out there as you get. They gave him a speaking spot at the last convention.
Is his boy.
Exactly. Yeah. And Peter Thiel almost single-handedly created J.D. Vance as a political figure. He is the one who funded him becoming a senator. He tried to do it with Blake Masters in Arizona at the same time and with J.D. Vance in Ohio. He could not get there with Blake Masters. It didn't help that Blake Masters said he thought the most underappreciated thinker in American life was the Unabomber. That didn't help. But J.D. Vance was disciplined enough to not talk about his Unabomber beliefs, if he has them. But Peter Thiel is this guy. Peter Thiel created him in a lab. And so to have Peter Thiel own the vice president and to have Elon Musk own the president at a time when Donald Trump has personal financial liabilities in the hundreds of millions of dollars that are not going to go away because he is president. We are looking at a situation.
It's giving Harlan Crow. It's giving Harlan Crow.
But
I mean,
more
if you think
than that,
about...
think about the amount of government contracts Elon Musk has through Starlink, not just with the U.S. government, governments around the world. He is so tangled, and now he could be in a position where he is sitting behind the scenes and getting exactly what he wants from a sitting president.
And this is why I'm saying Harlan Crow. I mean, if you think about the way that these billionaires are purchasing Supreme Court justices, purchasing policies that they want, purchasing the American government. And, you know, Elon Musk as a person, to go back to the Ann Burrell, he is somebody who was sued by his own employees because they created such a racist environment inside of Tesla that people couldn't even stand to work there. There were parts of the factory that were called the slave quarters under him. He's somebody who said to Don Lemon, when Don Lemon briefly had this show that was on Next, that's now not on it anymore, that the way to get rid of racism is to stop talking about it. And if you just would shut up about it, it would go away. I mean, his own views, he has opened Twitter up to Nazis and some of the most extreme views, to the point where a lot of sort of, you know, reasonable people have gotten off of it because it's so toxic and ugly. And of course he would love to own a president. Of course Peter Thiel would love to own the vice president. What we're seeing is the purchasing of the American experiment, the purchasing of the American government, multiple branches of it, and it's happening right in front of our eyes.
Unless the voters choose otherwise.
Yeah.
That's still to be seen. We've got much more of our special coverage of the RNC next, with more on Republican vice presidential pick J.D. Vance from people who know him very well. Lots more still to get to. Stay with us.
We started.
Which looks better, this or this? Seems clear to me. If you love to save, check out the Wise Buy sales event going on right now at America's Best. Get 2 pairs of Progressives for just $129.95. Offer includes a comprehensive eye exam. Book an exam online today.
After careful review of medical guidance and research on pain relief, my recommendation is simple. Every home should have Salon Paws. Powerful, yet non-addictive. Targeted and long-lasting. I recommend Salon Paws. It's good medicine.
I'm Sam. I have a 3.5-year-old puppy. Levi is rambunctious. He is very active. So Levi's had to go to the vet because he was coughing a bit, and he ended up getting x-rays. It would have cost over $500 had I not had Fetch pet insurance.
Fetch provides coverage for all of this and so much more. Fetch protects over 400,000 pets. Get paid back up to 90% on unexpected vet bills. Fetch, the most comprehensive pet insurance. Get your free quote today.
Missing out on the things you love because of asthma? Get back to better breathing with Fasenra, an add-on treatment for eosinophilic asthma that is taken once every 8 weeks. Fasenra is not for sudden breathing problems or other eosinophilic conditions. Allergic reactions may occur. Don't stop your asthma treatments without talking with your doctor. Tell your doctor if your asthma worsens. Headache and sore throat may occur. Tell your doctor if you have a parasitic infection. Step back out there with Fasenra. Ask your doctor if it's right for you.
Hi, I'm Greg. I live in Bloomington, Illinois. I'm not an actor. I'm just a regular person. Some people say, why should I take Prevagen? I don't have a problem with my memory. Memory loss is not something that occurs overnight. I started noticing subtle lapses in memory. I want people to know that Prevagen has worked for me. It's helped my memory. It's helped my cognitive qualities. Give it a try. I want it to help you just like it has helped me.
Prevagen, at stores everywhere without a prescription.
When trucks are what you do, you build game-changing trucks. trucks that help you chase one of these.
If you feel it.
Or a couple of these.
We got twins.
We build trucks that help you maneuver around one of these.
That's right.
Jump one of these. And back away from one of these. We're Ram. And we were built for this, this, and this.
You don't face your fears, you ride them.
Twisters, in theaters July 19th.
The virus that causes shingles is sleeping in 99% of people over 50. It's lying dormant, waiting, and could reactivate. Shingles strikes as a painful, blistering rash that can last for weeks, and it could wake at any time. Think you are not at risk for shingles? It's time to wake up, because shingles could wake up in you. If you're over 50, talk to your doctor or pharmacist about shingles prevention.
Guys, are you tired of frequent nighttime bathroom trips? Well, Force Factor Prostate contains key ingredients to help reduce urges to urinate, fully empty your bladder, and promote a normal prostate size. Don't settle. Rush to Walmart for Force Factor Prostate from the #1 fastest growing men's health brand in America.
DealDash.com. Online auctions since 2009. This PlayStation 5 sold for only 50 cents. This iPad Pro sold for less than $34. And this Nintendo Switch sold for less than $20. Go to DealDash.com and see how much you can save.
You were hired to be a maintenance manager, but everyone really knows you as a repair expert, a procurement specialist, and a problem solver. No matter what you're called, you know who to call to help keep your operation running. Grainger has over 1 million products, including the one you need now, plus the scale to deliver next day on most orders, so you can focus on delivering for the ones who count on you. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Get the life back. Okay, good. He's breathing. Okay.
When I saw that Ethan was not breathing, I determined that I needed to use something to remove the obstruction from his airway.
It's very important for every household to have a life vest.
Everyone should have one in their home. Anything can happen at any moment.
I want my friends and family and the people that I serve to know that we have this device to potentially save lives.
Protect your family. Go to lifevac.net.
Go to lifevac.net or call 877-LIFEVAC.
The Hill crawls with lifers, bouncing from government, doing the same things my predecessors did. Today, the Teamsters are here to say we are not beholden to anyone or any party.
Sean O'Brien from the Teamsters giving a keynote speech tonight, basically trying to say the thing that Republicans are always trying to get organized labor to say, which is, we don't support Democrats just because they're Democrats. We're available to you, too. He's not endorsing Trump there tonight, but is there basically to say the Teamsters are available to the Republican Party. That, of course, in stark contrast to the UAW, the most high-profile union in the country, whose leadership very strongly endorsed Joe Biden after Joe Biden made history as, I think, inarguably the most pro-union president in history. He made history when, as a sitting president, he went out and stood on the picket line, joined workers who were striking against the big three auto workers in Michigan. That, of course, a successful strike that resulted in record contracts for the UAW. Jen.
Yeah, I mean, I think this one stings a bit. I don't think it matters hugely, but I think it stings a bit if you're the Democrats and the...
Just because the Republican Party is uniformly anti-union.
Yes.
Right?
That's so the
whole right-to-work state thing, right? The idea that they're in Wisconsin, right? The hallmark of the Wisconsin Republican Party is stripping union rights, stripping the rights of unions and union members in that state. That is how the Republican Party got a hold of Republican state government in Wisconsin. So for a major labor leader to say, oh, yeah, the Republicans, they have a lot to offer our members and we're open to their endorsement, given the recent history of the Republican Party, it's
the Teamsters have a bit of a history with Republicans. The Teamsters endorsed Nixon. The Teamsters endorsed Reagan. So that's the one big union that has always been looking over there. And there's an awful lot of muddy stuff, especially around the Nixon period of the Teamsters. It was the most corrupt union possibly in the country's history at that time.
Now, see, I've never heard that before.
Well, you might have heard of a guy named Jimmy Hoffa. You know, not every union had their presidents get murdered, you know, and so they were so deep in with the mob, Jimmy Hoffa and all those guys, and Nixon at the same time.
Yeah. While we were watching this first night, the sort of closing portion of the first night of the Republican National Convention in Milwaukee, we're still getting reaction to the news that J.D. Vance has been chosen as Donald Trump's vice presidential running mate. I believe that we've got a guest standing by from J.D. Vance's home state of Ohio. Jen.
I want to bring into the conversation Liz Walters, who is chair of the Democratic Party in Ohio. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. I know there's a lot going on and a lot of big news coming out of your state. So let me start with the big news from tonight. You know J.D. Vance. You've followed his record. You know about his record. What should people know who are just tuning into who this guy is?
Yeah, in the short time that J.D. Vance has been here in the political space in Ohio, I think that Ohioans have learned something that the rest of the country will learn this year. In this election, the country will see that Ohioans know, and they will know that J.D. Vance is an out-of-touch millionaire and a political shapeshifter who has been wrong for Ohio, will be wrong for our country, will lie about his record, will lie about his past, will lie about the things he believes in. And I'm interested to see how the next few days unfold.
Let me ask you about one specific piece of his record, because he has in the past and in the present been for an abortion ban. He's recently said it's up to the states, and we all know that means a lot of women out there will not have access to abortion care. Talk to us a little bit about his record on women's rights and abortion and his history on that issue.
Listen, what we learned during the Senate campaign in 2022 is that JD has dangerous stances about women's health and women's safety, whether it was telling women that they should stay in a violent marriage for the sake of their children, or how he referenced our victory for abortion rights in Ohio in November of last year as a gut punch. He has been unabashedly anti-abortion and unabashedly anti-woman the entire time he's been involved in politics here in Ohio. And I think Ohio voters in particular have sent a strong message, not only to J.D. Vance, but to any politician looking for our vote, that we support abortion rights. We voted to enshrine that in our Constitution by 13 points last year. And anywhere this issue is on the ballot, anywhere that candidates who oppose this issue are on the ballot, voters have something to say to them.
One of the things we've also been talking about this evening is just his evolution. I mean, he called himself a never-Trumper. He had many, many negative things to say about Donald Trump in the past. What do you attribute his evolution to? Is that actually what he believes? Is it ambition? What led to this point?
Evolution is a tasteful way to say it. I think he is a ruthlessly ambitious politician who will say and do whatever he has to get ahead. It's what we saw all through 2022. And frankly, his record so far as a U.S. Senator leaves us very little to go on. For most of the 18 months he's been in office, he's been auditioning for this job. So I think that as the campaign unfolds, we're going to see a really clear contrast between Vice President Biden and Vice President Harris and the record that they have to run on, and J.D. Vance's 18 months of nothing in the U.S. Senate, where he's done little to nothing to support the people of Ohio who sent him there to be their advocate.
Liz, if you don't mind if I jump in, sorry to jump into your interview, Jen. It's Rachel Maddow here in New York. Liz, thanks very much for being with us. I wanted to ask you, you said at the outset that he's a shapeshifter. And obviously he hasn't been a United States Senator for very long. He hasn't been a public figure for very long, other than as a person who wrote a very well-received autobiography. When you describe him as a shapeshifter, do you mean that Ohio voters sort of didn't get what they were expecting when they got him, that he campaigned or had a public image that was different than what people realized they were getting once he was in office?
That's completely right. I think whether it was, as you noted, he's very famous for this book about Appalachia. And in Appalachia, Ohio, they are still waiting for JD to be their advocate, to do any of the things that he promised to make their lives better. He's done far more for Silicon Valley than he has for the people of Appalachia, Ohio. Or whether it's his erasure of his never Trump background, or the way he's now conveniently trying to reshape his stance on abortion. He's not honest, he's not sincere, and he's continued to try to remake himself to whatever's convenient or politically expedient to serve his ambition.
Liz Walters, you have a big job ahead of you, big Senate race with Senator Sherrod Brown. Thank you so much for your time this evening. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's super interesting. I mean, hearing the home state perspective on him. I mean, Ohio, we've all been in this business long enough that we've seen Ohio go from a very purple state to a very red state. Sherrod Brown certainly has been the exception, and very popular as home state. Has a good chance, hopefully, of holding on to his seat. I think the Democrats think that they've got a chance that he can hold on to it. But to see J.D. Vance ride to the Senate on the strength of that autobiography that he wrote, the strength of that book that he wrote, and then essentially be Peter Thiel's pet senator once he got there, to hear the state party chair there say, yeah, he's basically just been working for Silicon Valley ever since he got here. He hasn't done anything for the people who he wrote this moving book about in terms of his own background. I mean, that's very hard to run from. That's going to stick to him, I think.
Here's something that Ohio Senator, now VP candidate, wrote in 2016 when he was comparing Donald Trump to Hitler. He begins this particular piece saying, "A few Saturdays ago, my wife and I spent the morning volunteering at a community garden in our San Francisco neighborhood." And it goes on from there. Now, if that was Kamala Harris's description of how she spent her San Francisco weekends, you'd kind of, okay, yeah, I get it. But it is just stunning. And this is the piece in which he compares Donald Trump, not to Hitler in this piece, but to heroin. The heroin that he says his mother was addicted to at the time, and so many people he knew in Ohio were addicted to. And that they were hoping that he would somehow, as we just heard, help them and address their lives. And there's J.D. Vance saying Donald Trump won't do that. Then J.D. Vance becomes a senator, and we're told he doesn't do it either.
Yeah. And it's a complete loss of the empathy that I think some people thought he had for people who are not doing well, for people who face addiction, for people who have been dismissed sort of by the elites. Here he is doing exactly the opposite of sort of what his book proposes in terms of character, in terms of consideration. He's someone who's in the pocket of Silicon Valley, someone who's sort of on the mean side of the conservative aisle when it comes to that empathy that I think is, part of that book. He is. It's a real repudiation of, I think, a lot of the emotional core of what that book explored.
But, it's interesting. If you read Hillbilly Elegy, there is, and of course, if you see the Ron Howard movie, I think the Ron Howard movie sort of really upped the sort of empathy piece of it. But there was a core piece of Hillbilly Elegy that I think did have a sort of background contempt, a sort of sense that people of Appalachia have pathologies that often are ascribed to people of color, honestly. And I think that tinge of it, I think there were some reviews of it, and I did read it, and there's part of it that felt, he's saying on the one hand that he comes from these people, that he has empathy for these people, but it's kind of similar to the way Ben Carson kind of then backslaps the people of Detroit that he grew up with and says they've got pathologies that I was able to rise out of, why can't they? There is an aspect of that in Hillbilly Elegy that I think is detectable when you read it, that makes this a little less surprising. I mean, this guy went to Yale, he went to, became a hedge fund guy, and there's a thing, I mean, Rick Scott has a little bit of that, who grew up poor, but then seems to show a sort of contempt for the people he came from. So I have to be honest, I'm not shocked that this is what he is. He's an ambitious man who's decided that the people he grew up around have too many pathologies to figure out what he figured out, and he's willing to dispose of them for power.
I do also love that the Republican ticket is now a real estate developer and a venture capitalist.
For the people. For the people.
But they're for the people because that's what they really think they've got a case to make to the working class.
Yeah,
I
mean, I was just going to say, I also think it's the evolution of the power of Donald Trump. Not the evolution of the power, the rise of the power of Donald Trump. Maybe, if we're being generous for a second, because we've watched a lot of videos of him and interviews from 7, 8 years ago, maybe that's who he was a bit more 8 years ago, right? But he could no longer be that person if he wanted to rise in the party and become the vice presidential nominee. So he said, you know what? I'm shedding that person and any connection to Appalachia and the working class people I ran for because I want to be that. And I want to be in the Oval Office.
Because I want to run with the guy who I think might be America's Hitler.
And is unfit to be president.
Well, and the other piece of it is, you know, the families are you know, sort of they don't want to be part of it necessarily. But, I mean, this is a man who's married to a woman whose parents, you know, immigrated to this country from India, and he now represents a party that wants to end the 14th Amendment's birthright citizenship. You know, there's a lot of sort of irony, just the same as, you know, Donald Trump's wife is an immigrant, but he's the most anti-immigrant, you know, figure that we've seen in politics in a long time. How do those contradictions get explained to Mrs. Vance, you know, and her family? Are they a part of this new right that he is the vanguard of? I don't know, maybe, but we'll see.
And J.D. Vance makes history tonight as the running mate on a presidential ticket who has said the worst things about his running mate. There's no one else. The others that had any kind of conflict points, it was always policy. It was George Bush saying Reagan's economics were voodoo economics, and then he puts that away and becomes a running mate. But comparing your running mate to Hitler and all these other things that J.D. Vance has said really is unique. And there's Donald Trump sitting in that row. Half of the guys he's sitting with have expressed their hatred of him. He's sitting with 4 guys. 2 of them, Tucker Carlson and J.D. Vance, have expressed their hatred of him. And Donald Trump knows that.
But now, but that's part of his power, right? Like, oh, you hate me, but look at the way, look what I can make you do.
Right, and that's exactly what it is. He likes showing you that he can take these people and control them and force them to bend to his will.
But I'm telling you, the downside of that, you do that with people who have like supplicant personalities. But if you do that with people as ambitious as J.D. Vance and frankly Tucker Carlson, never turn your back on those guys again. All right, we're going to take a quick break before our coverage continues. Much more ahead. Stay with us.
What does a robot know about love? It takes a human to translate that leap in our hearts into something we can see and hold. Etsy.
At the Jeep Make This the Summer event, you can take a vacation from payments on the most capable Wrangler ever. Our most affordable SUV, Jeep Compass. The only open-air pickup, Jeep Gladiator. And the most awarded SUV ever, Jeep Grand Cherokee. Hurry into your Jeep brand dealer and make the most out of summer with great deals plus no payments for 90 days.
During the Jeep Make This the Summer event, get $3,000 total bonus cash allowance on select 2024 Jeep Grand Cherokee Limited models in dealer stock.
Only from SimpliSafe, 24/7 lifeguard protection. This exclusive technology allows SimpliSafe agents to help stop crime in real time.
Stop. Police are on their way.
For instant intruder deterrence and faster police response, there's no safe like SimpliSafe.
Bordery ships the only fully arranged cheese and charcuterie boards nationwide, so you can make hosting stress-free. Perfect for hosting a party or celebrating a birthday. With boards for every occasion, Bordery is guaranteed to impress. Order today at Bordery.com.
Dupixent can help people with asthma breathe better in as little as 2 weeks. So this is better, even this. Dupixent is an add-on treatment for specific types of moderate to severe asthma that's not for sudden breathing problems. Dupixent can cause allergic reactions that can be severe. Tell your doctor right away if you have rash, chest pain, worsening shortness of breath, tingling.
Use Trivago. Trivago compares hotel prices from hundreds of sites, so you can save up to $50 a night.
Well, at least I got the last ticket to the game.
think so, no. Have you since seen it?
I've seen pieces of it. I've not watched the whole debate.
And the reason I ask, because I guess the question is, are you all on the same page? Are you seeing what they saw, which was moments of, frankly, that appeared to be, you appeared to be confused?
Lester, look, why don't you guys ever talk about the 28 lies he told? Where are you on this? Why didn't the press ever talk about that? 28 times it's confirmed he lied in that debate. I had a bad night. I wasn't feeling well at all. And I had been, without him making it, I screwed up. But
I just asked the question because the idea that you may or may not have seen what some of these other folks have seen, you're not on the same.
I'd have to see. I was there. I'd have to see it. I was there. And by the way, seriously, you won't answer the question, but why didn't the press talk about all the lies he told?
Well,
I haven't read anything about that.
We have reported many of the issues that came up during that debate.
No, you haven't.
We'll provide you with them.
God love you.
Okay.
God love you. No, you haven't. Kind of a fight there between President Biden and Lester Holt in the interview that aired earlier this evening. That interview happened today at the White House. We were just talking about, Alex, the campaign plans.
Yeah.
We don't know how long the campaign pause is going to last from Biden-Harris. They've taken all their ads down in the wake of the shooting on Saturday night in Pennsylvania. But you said that Vice President Harris does have a campaign event back on her schedule tomorrow?
She is going to be doing a moderated conversation on Wednesday, the day J.D. Vance is scheduled to speak to the convention. She's going to be doing a moderated conversation with Republican women in Michigan, and then I think another one on Thursday in North Carolina to talk about abortion and reproductive rights, where we know from interviews the president's very happy with how she's been his emissary on that. It's certainly a weak spot for J.D. Vance if you talk about national public opinion on reproductive choice. So the fact that they see they're putting the vice president out at this moment on this issue as her opponent is making his grand debut.
And it's her with Republican women.
Including Olivia Troy, who will be familiar to MSNBC viewers because they think they can make some inroads there.
Very interesting counter-programming. That's one of the things we're going to be watching over the course of this week as the Republican National Convention continues through Thursday night in Milwaukee. It is happening under very unusual circumstances in the wake of the shooting, the attempted assassination of the Republican now nominee, Donald Trump, on Saturday night. Again, the Democratic campaign has taken down all of its ads and stopped all of its campaigning. It sounds like maybe as of Wednesday, they'll be back doing campaign-style events. We shall see. But that's just one of the unusual things that is happening in American politics right now as our special coverage continues of tonight's Republican National Convention. Tonight's theme night at the Republican Convention was Make America Wealthy once again. Tomorrow it's Make America Safe once again, I think. And it's Mad Libs. It's a different line they fill in there every night. All right, but for now, our coverage continues with the 11th hour with Stephanie Ruhle, which starts right now.
Good evening once again. I'm Stephanie Ruhle. Welcome to our continuing coverage of the Republican National Convention. With 113 days until the election, today the RNC opened with a historic backdrop. The classified documents case against Donald Trump was dismissed in Florida, and it has been just over 48 hours since the assassination attempt on the former president. We'll have more on that later on in the hour. But right now, all eyes are on Milwaukee, as the Republican presidential nominee made a surprise appearance after he was injured on Saturday. Earlier this evening, delegates from all 50 states officially selected Trump. He then took to social media to announce that J.D. Vance would be his running mate. Vance is the junior senator from Ohio and author of Hillbilly Elegy.